So we're in your government book, and we're in session 2 of chapter 5, which we're talking about Congress, and we're going to talk about the procedures within Congress. Remember, Congress is that legislative branch which makes our laws. So it's an important branch of our government. So in this section, we're talking about the procedures to carry out business, and some are required by the Constitution and some are adopted by the Congress through history. So basically, we're going to talk about the process, the pay, and the privilege, and the penalties, those 4 P's. So the process. So a term. So the Congress lasts for 2 years. I mean, the congressmen are in the House of Representatives are basically picked for 2-year term. But the process also, each term of Congress lasts for 2 years and has been numbered consecutively since the beginning of the first Congress. On March 4th, 1789 was the first Congress, the 110th Congress. When I say term, House of Representatives are picked for 2 terms, and of course senators are 6. I say 2 terms, 2 years, or 6 years. But we're talking about the terms, and each term, basically the term being that 2-year period. So, so the first Congress was March 4th, 1789, the 110th, and the Congress ran from on and on from noon then to January 3rd, 2007 to the noon on January 3rd in 2009. So you can see how now it goes. Since Congress must meet at least once a year, there are 2 regular sessions of Congress during each term. So each year we have a session every year. So each term is 2 years. So we'll have 2 sessions. So Congress, basically it says at certain times of the year, usually during national holidays, Congress adjourns and dismisses from its session on holidays, of course. So going on here, we're going to talk about this 20th Amendment, which is really important when it comes to Congress, because it's called the lame duck Congress. So before the 20th Amendment, basically when the Congress would be in session, or when even the president would take over, there was a long period of time during that time, because there's travel difficulties and all kinds of things, So this was amended in 1933. Before this time, Congress wouldn't start until like March. And so now this new Congress, of course, we start Congress on January 3rd of each year. But before that, they didn't start until like March 4th. So, and after FDR, Roosevelt, the 20th Amendment went in, and this changed the meeting time of Congress to noon on January 3rd of each year. Before that time, it was like March 14th. So the reason they called it lame duck, because during that time, during the lame duck time, that time was called lame duck because those people that were in Congress at that time didn't hold office anymore. So they were just sitting there in office until the new person would come and take over. So they were like a lame duck in office. They couldn't really do very much. They weren't elected. They were elected out, so they had a new person coming in. They just had to wait around. That's why they called it the lame duck Congress. So, well, both houses agree. Let's see, it's going from the 20th Amendment here. Both houses must agree on the date of adjournment. So both houses must agree if they're going to adjourn, and neither can adjourn more than 3 days without the other house knowing. So like if the House of Representatives is going to say we're going to adjourn for a week, well, they can't do that. They can't adjourn more than 3 days unless it's okay with the other house. They can't just adjourn and reconvene whenever they want to. This is very important to prevent the delay of some important bills. Say that important bill was being passed and all of a sudden the Speaker of the House said, okay, we're going to adjourn. Not a good thing to do. They can't do that. So the president has authority to then adjourn them if they have to adjourn, like if there was an emergency or something and they would have to adjourn, the president would have authority to say they could adjourn and go to a such and such place to meet. So, but they cannot do that on their own. That's in the Constitution. So, Congress in session. There must be a minimum number of members on the floor for Congress to do business. They must have a simple majority of like 1/2 majority would be at least 1/2 or more, and that would be the quorum. I said quorum last time was the required number. So the required number to vote on a bill, they'd have to have a quorum. And so there's a minimum members on the floor. They have to have a quorum on the floor to conduct business. So they can't do anything unless they have that quorum of half of the people there. So and then they have a journal that records business. It's put in this journal, and this journal is called a Congressional record. Let's go on to the next. It talks about the Congressional record here. So in this journal, they have this Congressional record, and it has all the basic information, what they voted on and the actions and bills, all in this Congressional record, or its journal. Since 1873, we've had a much thorough record. Now everything's recorded. Before that time, they just recorded things that were said on the floor, roll calls and all such, but now everything's recorded on the Congressional record. Okay, that was the procedure that goes on. Let's talk about the pay. So what about the pay? Well, for one thing we need to know, they're paid. Who pays them? They're paid out of the United States Treasury. And they actually set their own salary by law. So, but according to the 27th Amendment, any pay raise in Congress if Congress gives itself a pay raise, it cannot go into effect until the next congressional election. So when Congress comes, it's like, okay, you want a pay raise? They're all coming in. Oh, good. We're going to raise our own pay. Nope, that pay doesn't go in effect until the next election. So they can't do that. So as we see here, in 2011, senators and representatives received a salary of $174,000 per year. Pretty good. The Speaker of the House is $223,500 per year. So you can see the President pro temp was the Senate was 193. So you can see what kind of pay they get. So let's go on and talk about privileges. What kind of privileges do they have? Well, they have benefits. Their benefits and pensions and their pension plans. So for one thing, they have special tax deductions from their taxes. They have travel allowances. They have affordable medical care. They also have funds to pay their staff members, of course. And their offices are in Washington and their home state, and they are paid for. They don't pay any postage at all. They call it franking mail privilege. So that franking privilege is that they don't have to pay for postage. So if you're mailing anything, they don't have to pay for it. So, which we do. They also have life insurance and medical insurance. Here, let's see. When Congress is in session, this is called Congressional immunity. So when Congress is in session, they are free from arrest. So why was that? And they're not liable for anything they say. So when they're in session and Congress is in session and they're debating on the floor, if they say something wrong, they're not liable for anything that they say. So they're not liable to, at this point. They're not under the law. This is the congressional immunity. Also, they're free from arrest. So you can't come in, and arrest somebody when Congress is in session. A lot of times this is because there will be phony charges to hinder Congress. That say, okay, we're going to charge this person and arrest this person, and it'd be a phony arrest, and it would just be to hinder all the processes of bills being passed. So the congressional immunity is when Congress is in session, only when they're in session, that all its members, the congressmen, will have immunity from being arrested at that time, or immunity from saying anything wrong and being liable what they say during that period of time. Let's go on to the penalties. What are the penalties here? There's only like 2 big penalties here, but the penalties, first of all, the Constitution gives Congress the power to impeach federal officers. However, Congress cannot impeach its own members. So Congress can impeach the president or vice president, or Congress can impeach judges, but Congress cannot impeach its own congressmen. So basically, Congress sets the rules by which its members can be censored or expelled. So these 2 things that can happen. They can be censored or expelled. So Congress is given the power to punish its members for disorderly behavior by, first, let's talk about censorship. What's censorship? Both the Senate and the House have censorship. And this is where they officially condemn a certain member for misconduct. So they take this member and they censor it, this member, and it's required to, it's called stand in the well. I was like, stand in the corner or what? But they're standing in the well, they call it. And then they hear their charges against them read publicly. And censures are very rare. In 1990, a Senate was censured, and in 2010, the House did. And both of these were for financial misconduct, probably stealing money, right? And the other type of penalty would be expulsion. And expulsion is the greatest penalty for a disorderly member. And by expulsion, you have to have a 2/3 of vote of the Senate and the House. So it's rarely used, but 2/3 of the people have to vote to expel them or have expulsion on them. In 2002, there was a member of the House that was expelled, but it's very rare. So, but if a member is expelled, dies, or resigns, who picks a new member? Well, the governor of that state, wherever state they were from. Say they were a senator from Alabama, then the governor of Alabama would either call for a special election, or in some case it would appoint somebody to fill in that position until the next election. So this section is very short. The last section is very long, huh? So let's just go over the section review here. It says, how many sessions must Congress hold during each term? 2 sessions. 2 sessions for 2 years. So you have 1 session a year, right? When does the new Congress convene? Always on January 3rd. Remember, before, in the lame duck times, they waited clear till March because it took them a long time to move everything around back then. They didn't have very good weather, roads and weather, I guess. But since then, it's been changed to the lame duck from January to January 3rd. In the 20th Amendment in 1933. 20th Amendment in 1933 changed that to January 3rd. So, what is a quorum? So, what is a quorum? A quorum is the required number to vote on a bill. So, basically, you have the required number. So, if you don't have enough people there, you can't vote on a bill. If all the senators are not there, you can't vote on a bill. If all the House of Representatives are not there, you can't vote on it. You have to have a quorum. So, number 3, what is the source of congressional pay? They're paid out of what? The United States Treasury, right? And who determines the congressional salaries? They do. They set their own salary by law, but they can't, when they set a salary, they can't raise their salary while they're in. They have to wait to the next election before they can do that. So, number 4, explain the concept of congressional immunity. Congressional immunity basically is when the Congress is in session, they cannot be arrested. They can't come in and say, okay, we're going to arrest this person or whatever in the midst of Congress. They're free from arrest during Congress in session. That's because, like I said before, a lot of times there'd be somebody would be charged to be arrested, and it'd be a false charge just to make everything messed up in the midst of Congress. So let's see, what did I say? Oh, congressional immunity also, they're not liable for what they say when they're speaking when the Congress is in session. So, so number 5, how many Congress discipline its members? So, number 5, discipline. There's 2 ways of disciplining. One is censure, and that means a person is officially censured and condemns a member for misconduct. They have to stand in the well and they get publicly, told what they did wrong. And then expulsion is when they expel, and they have to have 2/3 vote to expel someone. So, and of course, Congress doesn't impeach its own members. They can impeach can impeach a president, and it can impeach a judge, but it can't impeach its own members. So that's the end of that section. That was a pretty quick section.